Friends, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's not difficult for you, but it's nice for me, and we're starting. Daniel Moss was a smart guy, but his mind was turned to work. At the age of 28, he was reputed to be the most successful employee in the West East Company. His boss, Matthew Morgan, always said at every meeting that other employees needed to follow Mr. Moss's example. Daniel rose through the ranks rapidly, and one day, he suddenly became the head of an entire international relations department. It was a huge success, and all the employees of the company reacted with understanding to this increase. After all, they agreed. With such dedication, any employee of the company deserved encouragement. Good money gave confidence in the future. Everything was fine. Christina Moss, Daniel's 26-year-old wife, was beautiful, slender, tall, with memorable breasts. Her jet black hair caused Daniel to be in love with downright blissful awe. And even now, when Danny looked in amazement at the fantastic performance that took place in his bedroom with Christy, he saw that his wife was the most beautiful woman in the world. And the silent phone was filming a real party. 7 men were using Christina. Someone was waiting for their turn. Someone was enjoying the pleasant performance of Christy. There were lucky people who plunged into Christy. It was like an adult movie, but for Danny, the situation was not exciting. He would never have agreed to have his Christy in the role of an actress. But, as it turned out, no one even asked him. That day, another party was held at their house, which was hosted by Christy. She believed that her husband's status gave her the right to gather her acquaintances in their house. Although it was her house, her grandmother left a beautiful mansion for her beloved granddaughter. 7 couples came to the party. The men were the senior hosts. Danny knew that these were the people who helped him and his wife cope with the troubles at work. There were also executives from other companies. These were successful people who had considerable weight in their city, in the county, and even in the state. 7 middle-aged women matched the men. Let's say even Matthew Morgan came with his wife Catherine. Danny had never seen Mrs. Morgan before these parties. A sweet and intelligent woman who loved to talk about her husband, who was the whole world to her. Everything was going traditionally, but Christina suddenly remembered that they did not have beer, which would now be a suitable drink for the guests. And Daniel had to go to the market. Half an hour one way, half an hour back, plus the search for beer in the market. Well, the party wouldn't have suffered from the absence of the host. Danny got into his car and started it. He never argued with Christina. She was a goddess who had to be earned. And he, Daniel Moss, was the lucky one who had the honor of enjoying the goddess's body. He drove 100 meters away from the house, but suddenly remembered that he had bought 2 barrels of beer the other day and kept them in the basement. It's strange, because even Christina knew that the beer was completely chilled there and, while waiting for it to be consumed, Danny turned the car around and returned back. He drove into the garage and hurried into the courtyard, where there were guests. That bastard! She sent her husband for beer, and she went to use our old people. Mrs. Morgan told strange information. Well, her gullible cuckold Danny doesn't even suspect that he's been used for 3 years now. God, you have to be born an idiot who doesn't see the obvious. Mrs. Forst, the wife of Christina's boss, was more outspoken. Girls, what do you care? We are paid money as an escort for our boys. We play our part, and the rest is none of our business. So, just having fun at the expense of poor Danny. I don't think he deserved that fate. He just loves her too much. Another Mrs. defended Daniel, who froze around the corner of the house. He became very ill. It went dark in my eyes. He turned around and entered the garage, from where he went into the house. His phone ended up in his hands and was set to record. No, he would not be able to use this video in a divorce. In their state, adultery was not a cause that would be disastrous for a cheater, but he wanted to ruin the lives of everyone who participated in this deception. Men's voices could be heard outside the bedroom door. No one tried to close the doors. Who needs to hide from her husband, who will return after some time, during which you can use the hostess of the party for everyone? 10 minutes of shameful performance was enough for Danny. The excellent recording quality made it possible to identify all the party participants. No, he did not enjoy watching it. The view of Matthew Morgan, who used Christy in the 5th point, was not so beautiful. no matter how fans of such parties tried to show this action. And Mr. Robert Forst's organ, bathed in the incomparable Christie, did not look attractive to Danny either. The exhausted man hurried to the basement, to his home office. He didn't take all his things. Just everything you need. A laptop with removable drives, personal documents, a collection of antique coins, even a few $1,000s in cash that was in the safe. After thinking for a while, Danny took his wife's laptop as well. He wanted to know all the secrets of his wife. And then he quickly went back to the garage. The car hurriedly took him away in the direction of the city center. But Danny was no longer looking for a beer market. He found a cafe with free internet access. He had time to check his finances online. The cleanup of the shared accounts was quick. He and Christina had personal cards. It was from the time when they first started dating. They were already working in their companies at that time, and personal accounts were not canceled. It was planned to do so at the time of conception of the child. Then Danny turned on his wife's laptop and found a lot of photos and short videos that his wife sent to 7 men with whom she had been making love for a long time. Yes, he, Danny, has really been used for 3 whole years. But the most insulting thing was how his naivety was ridiculed. Christie herself wrote to her lovers that after every party that took place regularly on Thursday, she excommunicated her cookie from accessing her body for 2 days. She is stretched so much during the time of love that Danny could just hang out in her. And the loving Christie gave her 5th point only to her sweet daddies. Even his appointment as head of the department was due to Mr. Morgan's participation in parties. That's what it means to ascend to the throne through the mud. Danny was angry. He found 7 addresses of the party participants and sent the necessary videos and a short message to the real wives of the daddies, in which he told them that at this hour the men were at the same address in the suburbs and using their spouse. 7 ladies are present with them, who were introduced as the wives of the mistress of the house's lovers. Danny even informed all the wives that he is the husband of Christina Moss. Danny unplugged his laptop and put it in his backpack with his own. He left the cafe and went to the ATM. Several thousand more in cash ended up in his pockets. Then he drove to the outskirts of the city, to the highway that led west. He stopped at a roadside cafe and left the salon. The man took one last look at the car he was used to and went to the highway where the trucks were driving. A wonderful party was in full swing. Christina was enjoying the euphoria that remained after the insane act. It was so good. Her 7 experienced lovers knew how to please her. Yes, there was a small moment that spoiled the whole picture. She deceived her husband again today and spent a crazy love session in his bed with men who looked more like her father. It happened 3 years ago. She was Mr. Robert Forst's secretary at the time, and during a meeting between her boss and a friend, for the first time she succumbed to persuasion to provide 2 men with a love service. A good amount of money was even paid. She received $1,000 for an hour and a half of love, and the young woman liked it. She was always paid. The number of Robert's friends grew, and soon Christina was providing services to 7 men. She was glad that she could earn more money to, say, go on vacation with Danny. It was the memories of her husband that caused Christina's acute bouts of shame. Her constant infidelities dragged on. But, after all, everything was going well for Danny. Matthew Morgan, one of Christina's lovers, even allowed the husband of a young mistress to take a senior position in their company. Today's party was a regular party that took place regularly every 2 months. Yes, Danny will be unlucky again, and he will have to wait until Monday to get the usual portion of love. No, Christina loved her husband. She loved the way a young girl loves her boyfriend, who means everything to her. But she had been on the love needle for a very long time and could not give up that crazy lovemaking. The most amazing thing is that even the very idea that she was being used by 7 men in her own house, while her husband went to get beer for the guys, turned on a young woman. They finished their session and hurried to clean up the crime scene. Removing the sheets from the bed and opening the windows to the bedroom, Christina hurried into the shower. She wanted to wash away the traces of making love. The men sat down next to their couples. Danny wasn't there yet, and it was weird. He should have returned from the market by now. Everyone looked humble. The women who played the roles of wives were wonderful friends who were just earning their money. Christina's worries about her husband's absence made her pick up the phone. But no matter how worried Christina tried to contact Danny, all calls were forwarded to voicemail. "What happened, dear hostess?" Robert saw the nervousness of his mistress. "Danny should have arrived by now, and I can't get in touch with him." Christina looked at her boss in fright. But then something happened that none of those present expected. For several minutes, the real wives of 7 daddies burst into the yard. And then evil awoke in hell. All the spouses were sent a fresh video of the men's session with Christina. The ladies just tried to hide from the anger of the angry women who saw firsthand the golf meeting of their husbands. All of Christina's neighbors heard the scandal and called the police, who came to calm the vacationers. And then poor Christina's parents arrived. It turns out that Danny sent them a video too. It couldn't have been worse. It seemed to Christina that the real end of the world had begun. As it turned out later, all men lost most of their money and property through infidelity. Through marriage contracts, their wives sued everything they could in divorces. It was a disaster, and no one understood why Danny saw something he couldn't see. Christina quit her job, but she was lucky that one of the lovers was more successful and managed to keep his business from his wife. That's where Christina was hired. They took it so that, over time, they could start sessions again. All the men were exhausted, and they needed to find solace in the bosom of their young mistress. Life went on as usual again. But soon I had to cancel all sessions and meetings. As it turned out, Christina was pregnant. And, since the lovers never used condoms, then suspicion fell on them. Although, as the doctor's examination showed, the pregnancy began, presumably, in the period before or during the last party. Yes, Danny could have been the father of the child, but the husband himself simply disappeared in an unknown direction. His car was found in the parking lot in front of a road cafe, but neither the phone nor the account or mail were serviced anymore. There was one strange thread that just disappeared as soon as the police who were looking for the missing Daniel Moss wanted to unravel it. About $90,000 were transferred from a bank card in Danny's name to the account of one hospital in another state. Although, they did not manage to say anything encouraging. Someone needed plastic surgery, which was performed on a now unknown patient. And, most surprisingly, the hospital files on that patient were hacked and all information about the unknown was destroyed. Christina herself accepted what happened as punishment for treason. Her actions led to such a situation. Although, all her men were angry because of the lost money and ruined families. But no one offered revenge because no one could find the whereabouts of Daniel Moss. Even Danny's parents didn't know where their son was. He called them, but it was impossible to determine his location. There was some kind of cunning system for transferring calls even across Africa, where, according to the search engine, the subscriber was located. But it was in that place that there was an incredibly huge desert where you couldn't even find people, let alone some kind of phone towers. Danny hid securely and his search stopped over time. No one wanted to spend their money. Christina gave birth to beautiful twins. She decided to stay at home for a while and not return to work. And this led to the breakup of their love 8. The men retired, and their heirs were more prudent and did not find the former mistress of former bosses a coveted trophy. It was the best way for Christina to take care of herself. DNA tests of the girls found nothing in common with any of Christina's lovers. By way of elimination, the young mother realized that Danny was the father, but her husband was not there. And Daniel's younger sister Margaret found out about the discovery of the truth of the paternity of the babies Eliza and Beatrice. This served to bring the two women closer together. But Danny wasn't even mentioned. When Danny stopped the car on that last day of his stay in his hometown, he was sure that his future would be gray. The driver turned out to be an older man who was very friendly. They met. It turned out that Patrick had an almost similar situation. He also divorced his wife because of one stupid thing that opened a man's eyes. The curtain behind Danny quietly parted and a girl of about 20 or 22 got out. She was beautiful, but the right side of her face was disfigured. And then Danny heard a rather terrifying story. Patrick was a driver and tried to please his beloved wife Rhonda in everything. They had a daughter, Susie, a beautiful girl who was an ornament to the family. But then it turned out that Rhonda was not too desirable in the matter of wanting love. Even her closest friends began to talk about her adventures. It turned out that Rhonda often left her daughter alone in the house and went to a local bar to find a lover. When Patrick got a call from friends and told him about Rhonda's next party at a local bar, he hurried home. His flight ended that day. But my wife didn't know about it. Little Susie has always been inquisitive. But that damn day, she explored all the rooms on the second floor of the mansion. And then the worst happened. She just couldn't hold on to the steps and rolled down onto the ceramic floor tiles. Patrick was the first to see the mutilated face of his daughter, who couldn't even cry. There was no one in the house. The man grabbed his daughter and went to the hospital. He called a friend who was a divorce lawyer and told his story. In the hospital, where the baby was given help, two friends decided on the future of Patrick and Rhonda's marriage. Rhonda arrived home the next morning. She was drunk, but the blood stain that was near the steps scared the woman. The baby was nowhere to be found, and the woman went to the police. And then it became known that she had put her daughter in mortal danger and was to blame for the injuries to Susie's face. The husband, who arrived ahead of time, did not even talk to his wife. Rhonda was forbidden to approach the house where Patrick and Susie lived. Any meetings with her daughter were not even mentioned. The judge considered that the woman was dangerous for her daughter. Custody of Susie was given to Patrick, who was trying to survive in this cruel world. Rhonda's parents wanted to reconcile the former spouses, but Patrick refused to even talk to a woman who, for the sake of casual lovemaking, left her daughter alone in the house. Father and daughter were learning to survive in this world. All the money went as small plastic surgeries, but big money was needed for greater effect. Over time, the girl came to terms with her ugliness. She understood that her father was doing everything to make her feel comfortable in this life. When Susie graduated from high school, she refused to go to college, even though she was a pretty good computer scientist. She became her father's partner in the car business. They sold the old house and lived, in most cases, in a car. Although they had a small one-bedroom apartment in their hometown, the girl never reconciled with her mother. Although Rhonda herself did not consider herself to blame for the disaster for a while. It was only years later that the woman was able to come to her senses, but her daughter refused to communicate with her mother, who did not need her in her distant childhood. Yeah, I thought my case was the worst, but, you know, your life is even more unpleasant. Danny looked at the girl and tried to understand what she might have felt on that distant tragic day. I'm already used to it. The girl spoke to him for the first time. Her voice was incredibly beautiful. Are you used to it? You know. How much money do you need to complete a full recovery course? Danny suddenly decided that he had to do at least something pleasant for these people. Well, we already have 100,000. 75 more and my baby will regain her beauty. She's already the most beautiful girl in the world. I will do everything to make her the same as before. Patrick was excited. He had experienced the past pain again. This young man made him tell a scary story. But the guy was hurt too. 75? I have this money, and they can find me by them. I can transfer the required amount to the hospital account, and you will pay for both the operation and the stay in the ward. Let's say tomorrow morning we will find a cafe with internet, and I will make a transfer of money. May your daughter, Mr. Patrick, bring back the lost past as soon as possible. And I don't care that I can be found by translation. I'll just go to some remote place where no one will find me. Danny looked at the surprised father and daughter. But, Daniel, you don't know us. Patrick was shocked. Oh, forget about it. I just want to do something that I think is right at the moment. Danny smiled. I'll help you escape, Mr. Daniel. Susie couldn't hide her tears. I can hack into the hospital server, and no one will know about us. Yes, that's what happened. After transferring the entire amount to the hospital account, the girl was put in a room and began preparing for surgery. At this time, Danny moved into Patrick's apartment. The man even helped the guy find a job in a small company. 6 weeks later, Susie arrived from the hospital. Her face has been fixed. She was happy. And the culprit of her happiness was a man who just decided to help them. Christina filed for divorce a year and a half after that party, and their marriage ended. This was told by Danny's sister. It was with Susie's return from the hospital that the two young men began to get closer. Danny insisted that the girl go to school, and Susie received the long-awaited diploma of a computer technology specialist. After the final divorce of the young man, the The girl herself insisted on starting a relationship. She owed almost everything to her savior. And now she wanted to do everything necessary to make Danny feel happy. They got married 3 months after receiving Daniel's divorce papers. It was on that day of their wedding that the excited girl confessed that she was a little pregnant. This event was the reason for even more happiness for Danny himself. Although Patrick was over the moon with joy, a young family settled in a cozy house, and the happy future grandfather was a frequent guest in it. One Sunday, there was a knock on their door. Danny opened the door himself. Patrick and Susie were sitting in the living room and playing with baby Patricia, who turned 6 months old. An unknown woman in her 50s stood in front of the man. Her gaze was nervous. Danny smiled and asked, "Is there anything I can help you with, Mrs.?" "Well, I think I want to ask you a favor. My name is Rhonda, and I'm a mother. Your wife." The woman was worried. She understood that this young man was already familiar with the whole terrible story of the past. Mrs. Rhonda, I think. Susie and Patrick are in the living room right now, playing with baby Patricia. I agree that you should see each other, but I do not know how they will react to your appearance. Therefore, let me tell them about you first." Danny allowed the woman to enter the house. She obediently sat down on the offered chair, and Danny went into the living room. "You know, we have a guest. Just know, I don't want to kick her out, but I think you could at least not try to kill her." Danny was worried. "Is my mom here?" Susie looked at her husband with concern. "I dreamed about her today. Dad, let her come in. You know, our past is in the distant past. Yes, I haven't forgotten that pain. But, Danny, please call your mother." Everyone was sitting in silence when Rhonda entered the room. The family idol she saw was a blow to her. Tears poured from his eyes. Rhonda knelt down and in a low voice addressed her former family. "Forgive me. Please forgive me. For everything. For all the pain I've caused you. I'm sorry. Mom, meet this one. Your granddaughter, Patricia. And this is my beloved husband, Daniel. Get off your knees, Mom. I'm glad you came to visit us." Susie went up to the woman and helped her to her feet. "You've lost so much weight. Even too much. I'm glad." Rhonda hugged her daughter. She saw the beautiful face of her little girl, who forgave her mother's great stupidity. Yes, Rhonda always knew about Susie's past. She came to school and secretly watched her girl. She was in the hospital when the necessary operations were performed. But then Patrick took his daughter on almost constant flights. But now the daughter is happy next to the man who, as Rhonda found out, helped pay for the operation and made her daughter's life happy. "It's okay. You can come to visit us. I'm sure Patricia and I will be glad to have your company." Susie smiled at her father. She didn't want to rebuild the family, but she didn't want to cause a new wave of pain for anyone. "Dad, will you help Danny set the table? I've prepared everything." "Good. I agree." Patrick and Danny went to the kitchen. Seeing a happy daughter was the most pleasant thing for a father. "Will you stay for lunch with us, Mom? Is someone waiting for you at home?" Susie sat down on the sofa. Rhonda carefully sat down next to him. "If no one is against it, I think I'll stay. And at home, I live by myself afterwards. No one is waiting for me." A new batch of tears washed the face of the older woman. "Calm down, Mom. See, your granddaughter wants to play with you." Susie smiled at her mother and put the baby on her grandmother's lap. Yes, they almost made up. No one at the dinner table remembered the past. The main thing was the present and the future. Even if those terrible days were in my memory, but in that memory there are various terrible memories that no one brings out over time. Christina was surprised when she found out that her ex-husband had remarried. Margaret told the woman about this. As it turned out, everything was fine with Daniel, beautiful children, a happy wife, and a lot of love. Everything that Christina herself has lost. Recently, the young woman has been plagued by heart problems. She worried too much. Too many of her past mistakes have left an incurable mark on her heart. The only consolation for the tired woman were her 2 daughters. They have already turned 9 years old. 9 terrible years, which were the punishment for Christina for her 3 years of debauchery. And every new day was the same punishment. Christina went to the hospital for an examination and was offered to go to the hospital. The woman's heart was too weak. All this went beyond the hospital, and Margaret was the first to visit her former relative. "Hey, Chris, what are you thinking of being sick for? I took your girls to my place, but you're being treated here. They need you. You know, Marge, I want to ask you a favor. Tell Daniel that I'm at the hospital and his daughter. I have already signed the waiver documents and allowed the adoption. He will be the sole guardian. I do not know how long I will last, but I want the girls to be happy." Christina cried. "Chris, stop it. You'll get out of here and be happy about the girls' success." Margaret was worried. Christina didn't look very good, and the doctor's forecasts were not favorable. "Yeah, but I want the girls to have a father. I won't be able to give them the happiness they deserve. I've already transferred all my savings to them, as well as my insurance is also written down for both of them. I think that if I can't, well, then they will have a normal future." Christina suddenly felt calm. Margaret called Daniel. He already knew that the girls were his biological daughters. After consulting with his wife, Danny went to his hometown, where he received the documents for the children from Margaret. That day, 4 visitors entered Christina's room. "Hi, Christy. How are you?" Danny looked at his ex-wife with a strange concern. "Hi, Danny. As you can see, everything is beeping and not letting me sleep." Christina was joking. Yes, she missed talking to her ex-husband. "Mommy, and ours. Dad is taking us to his place. You'll come to us later, won't you?" Beatrice smiled tightly. "Yes, dear. Mom's coming. Then. But you behave well there. I will be ashamed to find out that you were ill-mannered." Christina was talking to her daughters, but her eyes were studying her ex-husband. "You and Aunt Marge go buy something from the machine in the hallway. We need to talk to your dad." When the doors closed behind the girls and Margaret, Christina was the first to break the silence. "I'm sorry, Danny. I don't think I need to tell you how stupid I was. Keep an eye on them. If everything is fine with me, then I will come and check on them. Of course, if you let me." "What do the doctors say?" Danny tried not to show excitement. He would never have believed that the cheerful Christina could look so exhausted. "Well, they promise. They know how to promise. And I believe them. You know, I'm asking you to forgive me. It will be easier for me. It's just going to be easier for me." Christina looked straight into Daniel's eyes. "You know, my Susie taught me to forgive and look to the future. I honestly and sincerely forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago, Christy, and I will look after the girls. They will need time to understand that I am their father. They already have a sister, Patricia, and a brother, Mark. I think I will do everything to make them happy. But you have to promise me that you will come to them. They will need your support. Do you hear me? Promise to come." Danny was resolute. He has really become a real man in these 9 years. "Yes, I will come. I'll need to see them often. But you also be the best father for them." Christina did not hide her tears. Daniel's arrival with his 2 daughters was greeted with enthusiasm. The whole Moss family was glad to have new girls in their house. Even Rhonda called the twins granddaughters. And Patrick was just shocked by the sight of them. He called Susie's 2 children the most beautiful. And the 2 new daughters were also the same. No, Patrick and Rhonda did not live together. Too much of the past reminded them of the pain they had endured. But, as parents, they began to put up well, successfully playing the role of grandparents for the younger members of their family. And, as Susie suspected, her parents seemed to have become such friends for each other with special benefits. But they just spent time together sometimes. Although, Rhonda did not try to move into Patrick's apartment for permanent residence. Just love and no commitment. Moreover, to be honest, they never met with others after the divorce. The fault was bad memories that spoiled any relationship. Christina, unfortunately for everyone, did not come to visit her daughters. She died in the hospital a few days after Danny informed her that he had long forgiven her for cheating. You know, maybe things would have been different if, but in real life, sometimes something happens that prevents the if from acting. Just an accidental oversight can change your whole life. Change it so that even time cannot erase the memory of the past. But even all the bad memories should not prevent you from enjoying a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Life is what happens here and now. Susie Moss ended the meeting with readers. She recently gave out a book of memoirs, Battered by Life. It was her first book, and it was dedicated to the entire Moss family. Her beloved husband Daniel, daughters Patricia, Elizabeth, and Beatrice, and son Mark, as well as Father Patrick and Mother Rhonda, who allowed me to tell this story. My personal pain has taught me to forgive the past and enjoy moments of joy with my family. Yes, you can criticize me and I won't be offended. Someone will not like that I forgave my mother and allowed her to reappear in my life. Someone will regret the death of Christina, who sincerely regretted her action. But, I'm not perfect. So is my book. Therefore, write your ending and enjoy the opportunity to change everything. I love you, and thank you for wanting to read a story about the lives of people who enjoy each other's presence. See you soon. Oh, I'll tell you a secret. I plan to publish another book. The working title is With the Love of Life. Wait, friends. The fans of the new book present greeted the author's words with applause. But, at that time, the woman fell into the hot embrace of her loved ones. Everyone around understood that this is exactly how you need to live, with the love of life. And looking at the Moss family, everyone wanted to be at least a little happier. After all, life is beautiful. Don't say that.